Christmas is nearly upon us, and the good vibes that come with it. At the end of December, we get to celebrate a week of community and friendship, a time of giving and a refreshing time to truly reflect on the year as a whole. Now, of course, coming from me as a Christian, Christmas almost also means the significance of the birth of Christ, one of the most important staples in our faith. The most important being the crucifixion. So if you're like me, Christmas is a huge moment for family and friends for multiple reasons. I like to think that once November hits, everybody gets into the Christmas tizzy, and everything goes chaotic for weeks and weeks until pretty much the week of Christmas. So what happens before that week? Are there any specific dates to really look out for? Well, if you dig into some European folklore roots, mostly around Germanic and Austrian origins, there is one particular day that's quite the opposite of Christmas, and basically is the shadow of Santa, a childhood figure of joy and giving. What we're talking about, of course, is the ominous demonic entity called Krampus. But Krampus isn't the only dark entity that surrounds the wintertime. Multiple figures do their best, out of fear or desperation, to strike terror in a time that's supposed to be joyful and happy. This is Grim Captivation, the paranormal podcast that explores the odd, dark, and macabre side of the supernatural. Krampus was thought to have been part of pagan rituals for the winter solstice to kind of begin with. There's a lot of varying origins for Krampus as to who or what he is. According to legend, quote-unquote legend, one of these legends, he is actually the son of Hel, the Norse god of the underworld. With the spread of Christianity, Krampus became associated with Christmas, despite efforts by the Catholic Church to ban him. This demonic entity and St. Nicholas are said to arrive on the evening of December 5th, also called Krampusnacht or Krampus Night. While St. Nicholas rewards nice children by leaving presents, Krampus beats those who are naughty with branches and sticks. According to traditional narratives of Alpine folklore around the Alps, Krampus would enter the towns, lashing his chains and bells to capture the bad children in a basket and bring them down to the underworld. So in some of these cases, he's also said to either eat them, actually devour them, or literally take them to hell. So, kind of scary. And then on December 6th, the next day, St. Nicholas Day, children awaken to find their gifts or nurse their injuries. So some of them actually do end up staying in the quote-unquote mortal realm, but with wounds. So hopefully we'll all be good after hearing this, or at least the children around us will. And as always, it's a good reminder that this is all surrounding if you believe in these entities and figures like Krampus or St. Nicholas. Either way, it's strange and a unique twist to the regular version of Christmas that we're used to. And speaking of, kind of twisting versions, some of us grew up on giving Santa cookies and milk on Christmas Eve. Rather than that, it's said that an offering of an alcoholic drink, normally schnapps, to Krampus will help families avoid him and allow their children to escape such terrible fates, probably the worst fates, being literally dragged to hell. So that's kind of bad. It's bad news. Strangely enough, it's said that both St. Nicholas and Krampus traveled together during the days of December 5th and 6th, and that the two of them are not really enemies at all. Rather, St. Nicholas gives out the pleasant gifts for the good children first, while Krampus goes with them or follows behind with lumps of coal, a good beating, or a capture that leads them either into his basket or a straight trip to hell. A very horrifying image, and it kind of really leads into the shadow of Santa theory. And it's very creepy to really think about it, that this Santa figure, especially back in, I think this was all the way in the 18th century. So this was hundreds of years ago that kids were hearing these stories that, yes, there is St. Nicholas or Santa, and he's bringing good gifts for all the good children, but all the all the naughty children or the bad children could potentially have the shadow of Santa, the evil version of Santa, coming after them. So it would definitely straighten some kids out, especially once the cold weather starts to hit, especially because it's around Germany and Austria, and some of these other figures are based around Iceland. So once the cold weather hits and it starts to get dark soon, these stories probably most definitely kind of struck a chord into these kids. So, but going back into the 21st century or present day, many Alpine countries continue to celebrate the Krampusnacht with parades, where the townsmen dress like devils and run through the streets chasing after children and naughty parents alike. More recently, the legend of Krampus has gained popularity in America, with Krampus festivals held across the country in Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and New York City. Krampuskarten, or vintage Krampus greeting cards, often depicted Krampus sneaking up on a child about to be punished. These cards often read Gruß von Krampus, or Greetings from Krampus. And I hope I said that right. Additionally, in the more recent years, in 2015, there was actually a Krampus film that I think, personally, that made Krampus look really cool, along with his, his little servants that capture the bad people around the time that's supposed to be, merry and joyful and all that stuff. Rather, Krampus gives them terrible times, nightmares, and ultimately punishes everybody in the film. So, so that's it had a very unique twist and ending to that film, especially. So yeah. Additionally, I also wanted to kind of add that since this is all mostly like Germanic words and also Icelandic words, I'm hoping that I do pronounce these right, but some of these words are very hard to pronounce for me. So just kind of like a forewarning or a heads up for you guys, especially during this Krampus episode, because it's a lot of difficult words that I'm kind of stumbling through here. So, but anyway, get back into it here, because is Krampus the only dark figure surrounding Christmas time and the Yule time of winter? Well, there are actually plenty others who cause mischief. Krampus is just the top of the list, or at least in my opinion, he has pretty much dominion over the other figures. Well, maybe not dominion, I should say, but he's kind of like the big. The big guy to look out for, in a way. So, the other figures that seem to appear or heard around Yule time or Krampus, surrounding Krampus and his shadowy deeds and whatnot, include Jolakotturinn, Gryla. I'm gonna say Gryla, the Yule Lads, Frau Perchta, and Belsnickel. Each of these figures have their own sort of horror and dark givings during Christmas time. First on the list is Jolakotturinn, which I hope I'm pronouncing right, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. This is actually an Icelandic giant cat that has two very weird sides to its personality. So to start off with, this cat is bloodthirsty and apparently targets children, of course, it's Christmas time. However, if parents want their children to be saved from being eaten by this supposedly 12-foot tall black cat, all they have to do is dress them in new clothes. And that's all. From a loose translation of an early 1900s story, the cat is described as this. If they heard his meow outside, everyone was immediately unhappy. All knew he hunted people, and he did not want mice. The poem also mentions the Yule cat's weakness for new clothes, saying, "The little children stood rosy and proud, all dressed up in their new clothes, for all who had something new to wear stayed out of the cat's grasp." So taking a common house pet and transforming it into something horrible could definitely make a child's imagination go wild with terror. Next we have Gryla. I'm going to say Gryla. Maybe, I guess, or Gryla. Did I say Gryla? I think it was Gryla before. So we have Gryla, who is the mother of the Yule Lads, who I mentioned earlier in the list. This giantess is one of the most evil figures in Icelandic folklore, and horror stories about her are still told to children through the festive season. Excuse me. Throughout the year, it is said that she collects whispers about children around the island misbehaving, and when winter sets in, she sets out to gather them. Her appetite for the flesh of naughty youths is insatiable, and each year she finds no shortage of her favorite crop. Collecting them up in a sack, she then cooks them in a pot and turns them into a giant stew that will sustain her until the next winter. So, yeah, very horrifying and terrible. And hearing that as a child, I'm assuming anybody would be absolutely frightened, especially, like I said, once the winter time sets in and the time gets darker earlier. They probably don't want to run into that. So. But now that the mother of the Yule Lads has been introduced, let's get into the lads themselves. Though each Yule Lad has their own quirks, all share the features of trolls. They were enormous, filthy, unintelligent creatures, humanoid and bestial in equal measure, who can only operate in the hours of the night, should the sun cast them into stone. And since the stories of these trolls came from the 18th century, some of these Yule Lads had quote-unquote older intentions in mind, like you'll see later, and there are 13 of them. So we are going to go briefly through each of the 13 Yule Lads. So the first of the Yule Lads to leave the mountains to stir up trouble across Iceland was Stekkjastur. I'm trying. Or Sheepcoat Claude. From the 12th of December until the 26th, his main goal was to harass or possibly capture the sheep of any household that he came across. So, Giljagar, I'm going to say that, or Gullygok, was the second Icelandic Yule Lad to arrive in human settlements. Hiding in the gullies around a house, waiting until its residents had fallen asleep, his method of troublemaking was to break into the cowshed to steal any milk available. So I'm guessing, the more cows you had, or goats, I should say, too, basically just be on the lookout for this guy in the wee hours of the night. The third Yule Lad, Stuffer, or Stubby, became a nuisance throughout Iceland at Christmas by stealing the household pans for the delicious crust that remained on them. From the 14th to the 26th of December, his appetite was insatiable as well. While this may not seem like a terrible crime, historically, pots and pans were incredibly valuable in Iceland. The country had no iron reserves or a mining industry of its own, and such goods had to be imported and were very expensive. So like I said, some of these are very, very specific on what the trolls really were after. So it's very unique. But being in the 18th century, coming from this, kind of makes sense. Thavorisleikir, which I probably butchered, was the fourth Yule Lad, is known in English as spoon liquor. So this Christmas troll set out his nationwide tour of mischief on the 15th of December each year to break into the homes of Icelanders and lick the spoons of households in the hope of a morsel to eat. And I think, if I have the image up, that he's like this very, a very skinny humanoid, or troll, I should say. Potaskefil, I hope, known in English as Pot Scraper, is like many of his brothers in that his Christmas hijinks are gluttonous. Breaking into one home after another, he seeks out pots of sauce, chunks of roast meat left on the tray, saucepans of seasonal vegetables, and scours off anything left over to eat. Potaskefil was no doubt created to encourage children to finish their meals. Leftovers may bring him sniffing to the door. So that's alone very creepy. So, our next Yule Lad is actually even creepier than that. And his name is kind of difficult as well. So I'll say this. Hold on, I really butchered it already. Eskaslakir. Sure, let's do that. In English is bowl liquor. So each night he would quite literally lay beneath a child's bed, waiting for them to finish their nighttime soup or pudding. When they are satisfied, he will readily snatch up the remaining food to guzzle down himself. Perhaps created to get children to go to sleep when asked, or not to indulge in a midnight snack. He epitomizes the trope of the monster under the bed. So, that is definitely creepier than a lot of these. He's just hiding under the bed, which, yeah, monster under the bed, yeah, that's terrifying. Nobody would want that, child or adult. So, Herdaskelir has a goal that he learned from another of the oldest of horror tropes. In English, his name is Door Slammer. Until the end of the month, he would sneak from home to home, reaching the furthest ends of the West Fjords to the bustling center of Reykjavik, to break in and bang as many doors as he could in order to wake those sleeping inside. But yeah, so this is literally the poltergeist that nobody wants, and coming from the one of the oldest horror tropes is basically this unseen hand or servant just slamming the doors, waking up everybody but never seeing anything. So I think this guy, he's like the annoying troll and just disturbing everybody's sleep when everybody's trying to, but it's freezing outside. So sleep is very rare to come by in winter, especially back then. So next up is actually based around a little snack. So while a delight the whole year round, skyr is a particular treat over Christmas, serving as a refreshment from the number of huge roast meals that usually accompany the holidays. In terms of Icelandic Christmas folklore, however, people were not the only ones craving skyr at this time of year. It was also the favorite meal of the 8th Icelandic Yule Lad, Skyrgamir, or Skyr Gobbler. From the 18th until the 30th, this national delight, a complement to both sweet and savory dishes, was under careful watch should it fall into the hands of this nefarious troll. So basically, this troll has a huge sweet tooth, and he's after all of the desserts, which is kind of funny. From the night of the 20th, however, vigilance was required when preparing the bjuga, or smoked sausage. It was the only piece of food that the 9th Yule Lad, oh boy, here we go again, Bjugnakrekir, and I'm not going to say that again, or sausage snatcher, wanted to get his grubby hands on. This troll had a perfect way of stealing this Icelandic delicacy. It is said that he would break into homes and hide in the rafters, waiting for his dinner to be cooked before swooping from above to snatch them. So, very interesting. Just hiding up, like, high up above, just like a creepy Spider-Man, if you would say. The 10th Yule Lad to descend from over the festive season was perhaps the creepiest of all. Glugagagir, which, I don't know, it's very long and a lot of G's, so this is also known as the window peeper. Considering the darkness of Iceland's winters, there are only 4 hours of sunlight a day around Christmas time. So it takes little imagination to picture the fear children must have felt passing the windows of their homes on Christmas nights, terrified that this fearsome troll was looking in upon them. Like several of the other characters mentioned above, it seems like this troll's chilling behavior was designed as a way to scare children from going outside in the dark winters. It was also a reminder that the child-eating Gryla had eyes across the country, looking out for miscreants. Gadatheffer, possibly, or doorway sniffer, may have come into folklore due to the whistling breaths of the wind creeping through Iceland's drafty turf houses. The reason for his sniffing was also nefarious. He was forever seeking out his favorite meal, the Icelandic delicacy of laufabread, or leaf bread. This delicious treat is only baked during Christmas time, and making it often a cherished family affair, especially in the north. Those renowned for detailed designs had particularly umbrage with Gadatheffer, I'm hoping, as he would often steal the laufabread before they could impress a single guest with it. And Christmas culinary traditions vary significantly between families, but there is one common central feature to most festive feasts, and that's the meat. In Icelandic folklore, however, this is the target of thievery from the 12th and penultimate Yule Lad, Kettkrókur, or meat hook. Lurking wherever he had access to a kitchen, behind doors, under tables and cupboards, outside open windows, he would lay in wait for the meat of any dish to be slapped onto the counter. As soon as he would avoid capture, he'd pull out his long hook and snag himself the centerpiece of the family meal. And the final Yule Lad is Kurtisnekkir, which probably not, whose name translates to candle stealer or candle beggar. He emerges on Christmas Eve in Iceland. Like his 12 brothers, his name is self-explanatory, although the consequences of his hijinks were more troublesome than they may appear. In the past, candles were incredibly valuable in Iceland, providing light throughout the winter darkness. And as noted, this lasts about 20 hours a day over Christmas. Candles were also the only available tool for Icelanders to enjoy their historically famous pastime of reading and over Christmas in Iceland. Everyone getting together to read is an old tradition. Now, after all the Yule Lads and their unique mischief across Iceland, we still aren't done talking about evildoers in the winter. Frau Perchta was also known as Berchta or Bertha, and has also been called Spinnstubenfrau, or spinning room lady. She is often depicted with a beaked nose made of iron, dressed in rags, perhaps carrying a cane, and generally resembles a decrepit old crone. Oddly enough, she carries a knife that's hidden underneath her skirt, and if you don't have enough fabric to spin on your loom, well, maybe she'll be after you, and maybe with that hidden knife. Other legends equate Frau Perchta with the legend of the Wild Hunt, excuse me, and says that she flies throughout the night sky, attended by an army of lost souls, including the demonic-looking Perchtin. Also among her army of the night are the souls of unbaptized children. Legend has it if you hear the wind and thunder roaring and rumbling through the mountains of the Birchtal nights, you're really hearing the sounds of Perchta leading the wild hunt. And last but not least is Belsnickel, which is a strange and fascinating character that I kind of came across. There are many ways that he's similar to Krampus, kind of tying it to the beginning, but he's much less evil in nature, so to speak, less evil. He's still kind of mischievous. To put things in a simple way, I actually found the intentions of Belsnickel related to Pennsylvania settlers. When people immigrated to Pennsylvania, they brought their German traditions with them. Belsnickel was known in Pennsylvania in the early 1800s. Amongst the Pennsylvania Germans, Belsnickel is the character who visits homes prior to Christmas to check up on the behavior of the children. The traditional Belsnickel showed up at houses 1 to 2 weeks before Christmas, and often created fright because he always knew exactly which of the children misbehaved. He would rap on the door or window with his stick, and often the children would have to answer a question for him or sing some type of song. In exchange, he would toss candies onto the floor. If the children jumped too quickly for the treats, they might end up being struck with Belsnickel's switch, or, sticks, or whatever he has. So, yes, the children do get punished if they misbehave or have acted bad throughout the year, but for Belsnickel, he doesn't literally bring them to hell or devour them alive. At least what I was kind of finding out there. So, all in all, there are a lot of winter terrors that originated from folklore and definitely scared some kids back in the day. Most definitely. Now, in the modern times, we might, brush these tales off as something scary or a weird topic to discuss around Christmas time. Either way, these strange figures are a part of many people's folklore, or perhaps their lifestyle even to this day. So let me know if you've heard of any of these figures, whether it be Krampus, or the Yule Lads, or even Jolakotturinn, the Great Cat. It's great to explore and expand into other traditions and see where the roots came out of all this. So, for a great Krampus day, I do believe we covered the worst of the demons of winter, and hopefully they don't come for you. And as always, this has been Grim Captivation, and thanks for listening.